Will now be recorded.
The council meeting of 1st, 2021 will now please come to order. Due to this meeting being a virtual meeting, council is asking if anyone who would like to address council who is participating through the computer, please use the chat feature now to let our clerk know that you have a comment, and you will be called on during the comment portion of our meeting. If you're calling on a phone or do not have access to the chat feature, we will give directions during the public comment portion of our meeting. We would ask that everyone who is participating in the meeting mute yourself, whether you're on the phone or on the computer. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mrs. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Broussard. Mr. Glassburn.
Here.
Ms. Seaman.
Here.
Mr. Kelly.
Here.
Mr. Limpert.
Present. Video in a second.
Mr.
Yep.
Mr. Schuman.
Here.
Ms. Williamson.
If there are no additions or corrections, the council meeting minutes of May 18th, 2021 are approved as written. The following legislation will be considered under suspension of the rules this evening. On second reading, Ordinance 2021-35 and Ordinance 2021-36. And on first reading, Resolution 2021-43 and Resolution 2021-44. Mayor Kennedy, do you have a report this evening?
Madam President, no report, but I will update you on the dog information. So I've spoken with all residents that have been interfered or bitten by this dog or these dogs, and the owner has until June 3rd to respond to our letter. Our police officer went over there to make sure the dogs were out of the place, and they were in the car on their way out when the dog bit the police officer. So they are officially out. That doesn't mean they can't come back. We're making sure that the dogs are out of the neighborhood. I know we're checking on it on a regular basis, and we're following all the state and local regulations. And my feeling is these dogs, if they're out of the city, they should remain out of the city, and we'll work with the law department to make sure that happens. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilman Kelly, do you have a question for the mayor?
Thank you, Madam President. Mayor, is the garbage going to be a day late this week due to the holiday?
Madam President?
Mayor.
Yes, the garbage will be a day late because of the holiday.
Councilman Kelly.
To continue with that, we no longer get text messages, neither my wife or I or many other people I know. Seems to be an issue since the phone number was changed, and I'm just curious as to if that's going to be repaired.
Yeah, I'm unaware of that problem, but I will look into it tomorrow.
All right, thank you.
Law Director Garreau, do you have a report this evening?
Thank you, Madam President. I do have a couple of brief comments, please. Thank you. The North Olmsted Law Department has welcomed Melissa Prica as a first-year law school student at Cleveland Marshall College of Law. She joined us as a law clerk. She qualifies under grant funding, which we've in the past I've told you we've tried to pursue to keep our costs down, and that's the program she's proceeding under. We're very excited to have her on board, and I think she's going to be a great fit for the law department. Additionally, this week, hopefully, if not the beginning of next week, I'll be commencing litigation concerning a traffic accident case that did very substantial amount of damage to the traffic equipment at the intersection of Canterbury and Lorraine. It was an inattentive driver that took out the mast arm and all the equipment that goes with it. It's nearly $20,000 in damage, and I've had no success dealing with their insurance company. So that's what courts are for. So I'll be proceeding with that. With respect to the situation with the dogs and the attack that took place over on the 13th of May. As far as the law department's concerned, there's been a total of 15 charges were brought relative to the dogs at large. At the time, I've indicated to others, and Mr. Gordillo indicated to Mr. Benson with Cleveland.com that we would be exploring additional charges. There are other registration charges under the revised code that could be brought, which are more significant penalties that unspecified misdemeanors, but carry up to 30 days in jail. Potential penalties. Not that I think that's necessarily going to happen, but there's also requirements under state code for confining, which also are first-degree misdemeanors. In terms of the City of North Olmsted's code, things that we've also given consideration to is the failure to register the animals. There's an insurance requirement, there's a signage requirement, and there's a requirement to maintain possession of these particular animals, all of which are currently being considered at this time. So I think it's my understanding that this particular individual did not have insurance that would potentially cover the injuries. I can tell you that in Ohio law, dog bite cases are called strict liability cases. If your dog bites somebody, you're liable. If it's off your property and it bites somebody, it's your responsibility financially. So I don't know what this individual's financial resources are, but I do know with respect to the homeowner and the individual that was occupying the home, whether that's the homeowner herself or a relative, there's probably an avenue of relief that needs to be explored by the individuals that were affected. All three of the residents and then the police officer. I don't know the extent of the police officer's injuries, but that certainly should be explored. So in terms of where we are in the law department, I know that there was some discussion about switching over the at-large cases to state code versus local code. The benefit to doing that would be they enhance on second and later offenses. You can get enhancers. And it will be those enhancers would apply to other communities if there's another bite case. So we're also exploring that possibility. It's relatively, in terms of criminal cases go, it's relatively young. I'm not even sure that we have full service on her yet, but I can verify that and then let you know. So as far as I'm concerned, where we're at, we're looking at additional charges. We haven't had contact in the law department yet with this individual, this defendant. But when we do, we're going to impose those charges that we feel are most appropriate and do so as quickly as possible. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you, Madam President. If I may direct the question to Law Director Garreau. Director Garreau, I was curious to know if we have in fact absolutely preserved our right under the state code. The reason is, in my ward a few years ago, we did have to pursue that, and over a course of 2 years with multiple bites, that dog was destroyed. And so I want to make sure that we have preserved that right if we are, wanting to elect to do that, or if that is off the table because of some.
Yeah. There's really two ways to do it. There's to do it through the state code, and there's through the North Olmsted code. I know there's I'm sorry?
I understand. I want to make sure that we still have state code available to us.
We do. Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Finance Director Kopfer, do you have a report this evening?
Madam President, Mr. Kelly, forgive me, Mr. Kelly had raised his hand at the very end of your comment.
Sorry, Councilman Kelly. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. Sorry. This is for the law director.
Yeah.
So just so that I understand, if the charges against the dogs are levied under a local code, if they're taken out of the city, if it's deemed a dangerous or vicious dog, because of this, they don't respond to the letter, and they have local charges and they leave our city and then they're involved in another bite, they're not considered a dangerous or vicious dog in that city under prosecution under a local code, but if it's prosecuted under a state code, they're a dangerous or vicious dog anywhere in the state, is the way I understand it. Is that correct?
Right. There's some, Madam President, if I may.
Director.
Thank you. There is, with respect to the state code charges, the application and enhancements in other communities, I'm not entirely sure that you would be precluded from other communities from proceeding with a dangerous, vicious animal charge, even if it was a North Olmsted Code section, because the revised code does specifically call out the ability of local municipalities to have their own set of regs, which it doesn't normally do that, but it does specifically here. So I'm not sure that that would preclude enforceability against that in other communities. I don't know that it necessarily would, but it's certainly something I could take a closer look at. I want to look, more than anything, Councilman, I want to make sure that these dogs are gone, they're not here, they don't come back, and that whatever penalties we can possibly extract against an individual who's this irresponsible are fully extracted. For those who are listening that might be in the community that are not familiar with the facts, you have 5 pit bulls that attack 3 different people and a police officer. So I don't have any second thoughts about doing whatever we can possibly do to ensure that they're gone and that there's accountability for it. So if it's a state code, local code, state code, and local code, we will pursue whatever possible avenue we can to ensure that that there's consequences and that people are safe. But thank you, Mr. Kelly, for your observation.
Thank you for the answer. Thank you.
Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say that, along with Councilman Kelly, I think we have an obligation to other communities, not just ours. I think we can solve our own problem by the dogs are no longer here, which is great, but I wouldn't want to put that harm in another community, which is why, Director Glinger, when he handled this for me, pursued state code, and ultimately the dog was destroyed because it didn't stop biting. Thank you.
Thank you. Finance Director Kopfer, do you have a report this evening?
Yes, I do, Madam President. The RETA, which is municipal income tax receipts, are running 5% greater than the prior year through April remittances in all 3 categories, withholding, individual, and net profits. And while it's optimistic, our due dates for 2020 were pushed back to July 15th, so we won't know for sure the true trend until August or September to be able to compare to 2021, which only had due dates pushed back to May 17th, which is a month. Additionally, the litigation that's outstanding and also Ohio House Bill 157 that made changes to workplace requirements that the state had in place during the emergency, which have been being discussed and are still outstanding, could impact the collections retroactively to 2020. Keith Sperling, the Assistant Finance Director, and I presented at the annual Tax Incentive Review Council meeting virtually on May 19th. We requested and received approval for compliance, timely reporting, and continuation for the Aloft and Vitalia Senior Living CRAs, as well as for the Great Northern TIF. As was discussed in the Finance Committee, the fire station bond will be called at its earliest optional redemption date of December 1st, 2022. The last payment is currently scheduled for December 31st of 2025. While it will save only about $54,000 in future interest costs, but it will reduce the property owner's taxes by 0.4 mils for the next 3 years. And this was accomplished with refunding the debt when we were able to, and which allows us to obtain a total lower cost of borrowing. And despite changes in property values, which have been on a roller coaster ride since 2004, when the voters approved the levy. The unaudited general purpose financial statements were filed today on the Auditor of State Hinkle system as required, and we are working on the comprehensive annual financial report, which is expected to be completed along with the audit by June 30th of this month. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Moving into council committee reports, Councilman Limpert, member of the Public Safety, Health, and Welfare Committee, do you have a report this evening?
No report this evening, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilman Limpert, as Vice Chairman of the Building, Zoning, and Development Committee, do you have a report this evening?
I do have a report this evening, Madam President. Thank you. The Board and Zoning Development Committee met on June 1st at 7 o'clock. Present were committee members Limpert and Schuman, council members Jones, Glassburn, Heeman, Kelly, and the mayor, law director, planning director. On the agenda was CMS 21-18668, Tractor Supply Company, 23300 Lorraine Road. The property zone B1 local business district, and Tractor Supply proposes to take over a portion of the retail space formerly occupied by Levin Furniture. Space will be subdivided with 6,000 square feet remaining for future tenants. Mrs. Lieber discussed the key factors of the plan in addition to requirements requested by the BZBA, as well as an outdoor display variance granted by the BZBA for the property. The motion passed by a vote of 2-0, and the meeting concluded at 7:07 p.m. Madam President,
Councilman Limpert.
at this time, I move to approve CMS 21-18668, Tractor Supply Company Incorporating, the changes proposed by the Planning and Design Commission, and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to approve CMS 21-18668 made by Councilman Limpert, seconded by Councilman Schuman. Roll call, please.
Mr. Limpert,
Yes.
Mr. Schuman,
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Ms. Heeman.
Yes.
CMS 21-18668 is approved with a vote of 5-0.
Madam President, this concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilman Schuman, Chairman of the Finance Committee, do you have a report this evening?
I do. Thank you, Madam President. Hope everybody can bear with me for a minute here. The Finance Committee met 5/25/21 at 7 o'clock. Present were members Schuman and Kelly, also council members Glassburn, Williamson, Limpert, Heeman, the directors of law, finance, and HR. From Tyler Technologies, Kyle Bremen and Justin Alme. First discussed was 2021-34, which is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a software as service SaaS agreement with Tyler Technologies to provide cloud-based hosting and related computer services and declaring an emergency as amended. This was discussed in budget and then was discussed at a previous committee meeting and then held in committee. To paraphrase the director of finance, we were making a choice to go from client or self-hosted to storing through Tyler on the cloud. We won't have to buy and maintain servers, and we will free up our IT department to work on the ongoing upgrades, like the phones. She estimated a small upcharge to start, but the costs would work out even. Councilwoman Williamson suggested we amend to include some language that the law director came up with, and that is in the amended version tonight. The additional language is, with only such changes to said contract to be hereinafter made as are not substantially adverse to the city and which are approved by the director of law, the character of any such changes as not being substantially adverse to the city shall be evidenced conclusively by the execution of the agreement by the mayor and approval of the agreement by the director of law. And then struck out was any contract executed by the mayor shall be in a form of substance consistent with the provisions of this resolution and be approved by the director of law. Committee voted 2021-34 was voted 2-0 to recommend to full council as amended. And at this time, I move we amend 2021-35 to 34, I'm sorry, to include the previously read verbiage, and I would ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to amend 2021-34 made by Councilman Schuman, seconded by Councilman Kelly. Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuman,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Ms. Seaman,
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn,
Yes.
Mr. Limpert.
Yes.
2021-34 is amended with a vote of 5-0.
Next, we discussed 2021-35. 2135 is an ordinance to make and transfer appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures for the city of North Olmsted for the year ending December 31st, 2021, and declaring an emergency as amended. So the 2021, I'm just going to go over the highlights. In HR, there was $6,000 added. This is for additional COVID testing at the senior center. There's a potential to get this reimbursed out of COVID money. $10,000 in engineering. This was pocket park money that was not appropriated and is a carry forward. $60,000 in police. These are contractual costs for shift differential and weekend bonuses that were not accounted for earlier. $11,500 in public works for the tree canopy program. And this is a grant which will be reimbursed. In CDBG funds, $150,000. This is the federal portion of the Elm Road project. Under general obligation, $162,000 in bond retirement fund, in the general obligation bond retirement fund, I'm sorry. And this is increases due to the bond insurance premiums going up. Under the library bond retirement, $116,000. This is a transfer to pay down a good part of the remaining balance, and this will lower the time remaining on the levy. Under capital improvements, $4,600. This is another carryover forward on the pocket park. The director assured us that all funds in being used at the pocket park were from grants and/or donations. The amendment on this legislation was $6,000 for police internet, and that's due to the regional dispatch that we just passed. 2021-35 was recommended 2-0 as amended with suspension. At this time, I move to amend 2021-35, and I ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to amend ordinance 2021-35 made by Councilman Schuman, seconded by Councilman Kelly. Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuman,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Limpert,
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn,
Yes.
Ms. Seaman, Ms. Seaman,
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-35 is amended with a vote of 5-0.
Lastly, we discussed 2021-36, which is an ordinance establishing a new local fiscal recovery fund as a special revenue fund to account for receipt and expenditure of federal funds as appropriated by the federal government for disbursement to municipalities in Ohio and declaring an emergency. This was just to open the fund. So the committee voted without any discussion, voted 2-0 to recommend with suspension. The meeting concluded at 7:43, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Limpert, Chairman of the Streets and Transportation Committee, do you have a report this evening?
I do have a report this evening, Madam President. Thank you. The Streets and Transportation Committee met on the 25th of May, 2021 at 7:45 p.m. Present were committee members Glassburn, Kelly, and Limpert. Council members Jones, Williamson, and Heeman. The mayor, law director, finance director, and city engineer. on the agenda was Resolution 2021-38, which was a resolution authorizing the city engineer to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to provide construction services for the Elm Road Rehabilitation Project. This was a follow-up from a previous resolution, 2020-120, to apply for the grant dollars. Mr. DeFranco noted that the 3,800-foot improvement or resurfacing is estimated at $300,000, and this grant would allow a 50% pay from the city as part of the contract bid, and is one of the lowest rated streets from our street assessment that we do annually. The objective will be to repair the street by the end of the year. This will be a 3-inch coverage, remove and replace from asphalt. Mr. Glassburn inquired about the age of the water pipes on the stretch of Elm Road, if there were any history of the water issues for the road, which Mr. DeFranco provided those years. After a little additional discussion, the motion passed by a vote of 3-0, and the meeting ended at 7:52 p.m. Madam President, this concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilwoman Heeman, Chairwoman of the Environmental Control Committee, do you have a report this evening?
I do not have a report this evening, but if I may have a moment of privilege.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to extend my thanks and gratitude to the VFW for once again, providing the services at the Memorial Day event at the park. Their mission statement, as many of you know, is that we honor the dead by serving the living. And I am proud to be a lifetime member and serve in that mission statement with them. There was no parade. It was a scaled back event, but still nonetheless very necessary for the work that we do there. And I'd like to thank them for continuing it even, in the challenge of the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Glassburn, Chairman of the Intergovernmental Relations Committee, do you have a report this evening?
No report this evening, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Kelly, Chairman of the Recreation, Public Parks and Buildings Committee, do you have a report this evening?
No report tonight. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Are there any letters or communications to come before council at this time?
No, Madam President.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us at our council meeting tonight. At this time, council will hear comments from the public. Please remember to state your name and address for our clerk. If you live in a city other than North Olmsted, please state the name of that city. We will start with those who have notified us via the chat feature who would like to comment. Please unmute your phone, start your comment when prompted. Clerk Mazzarolo, has anyone notified you that they would like to comment?
Yes, Madam President. Jen Rudolph had asked to comment this evening.
Thank you. Jen, please go ahead.
Hi, it's Jen Rudolph, 3329 Walter Road. I just wanted to convey my deep disappointment in the flyer I received from the mayor's campaign committee. Kevin, you've been a very good mayor, and it disturbed me greatly that rather than focusing on the accomplishments in your first communication for re-election, you instead choose to attack City Council on a decision that was made 2 to 3 years ago that didn't go your way. And frankly, I also thought it was pretty insulting to attack City Council when some of the members there have supported you for over 10 years, and there's less than a handful of decisions that haven't gone your way. Frankly, I expected better. That's all.
Madam President, if I can comment.
I would just like to remind Mayor that this isn't a political debate. This is our city council meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I'll refrain from commenting then.
Thank you.
But I would ask Jen Rudolph to please give me a call personally. I'd like to explain it to her.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Rudolph. At this time, is there anyone on the computer or phone who would like to comment? Please address council now. Mr. Sturgeon, I see your hand up.
Thank you. Jeff Sturgeon, 3092 West 231. On the Elm Road project, Mr. Limpert mentioned that they're going to be doing 3 inches of asphalt removing and 3 inches of replacement. My question is, Elm Road is a concrete road. It's not asphalt. So I don't know, are they going to grind 3 inches of concrete off that existing road and replace that with 3 inches of asphalt? Is that what their plan is? Because it's concrete. There's not asphalt on Elm Road now.
Yeah, Ms. Lieber, you could comment on that.
Director Lieber.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, it is a concrete street. It will be an overlay. There's no grinding, but there'll be base repairs needed where the joints are separating. So yes, it'll be an overlay, not mill and fill.
All right, thank you very much. Another question I have is, I'd like to say welcome the Tractor Supply Company to my neighborhood. I'm real happy that that's going to be going in. I did have a question regarding their first planning commission. I brought to their attention that they did not have a roof over their 2,000-gallon propane storage tank. And I knew state code required that, and I see that they did change that, and they are now putting a roof over that. And at that time, I was told that the fire chief was going to review that 2,000-gallon propane tank. Can anybody tell me, has the fire chief reviewed that? And if he did he have any comments regarding that?
Director Lieber.
Fire prevention is a part of our plan review process. So they've been involved in this project plan review since the initial submission, and it does get routed to fire before permits are issued. So it will certainly be reviewed for compliance with the Ohio Building Code and the state fire code.
So the fire chief has not reviewed it yet, but he will be reviewing it. Is that what you're telling me?
The preliminary plans were reviewed, but the detailed construction drawings, I don't believe, have been submitted for permit yet. So at the planning stage, they were aware of the propane tank. And once the detailed permit drawing set are submitted, that will be routed over to fire prevention for their review at that time too.
Okay, so the roof being over is going to stay over it regardless, and that they're showed on their plans. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sturgeon. Are there any additional comments from our audience? Seeing no other comments from our audience, we will now move into legislation.
Legislation on second reading. Resolution 2021-34, introduced by Mayor Kennedy. A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a software as a service, SaaS, agreement with Tyler Technologies to provide cloud-based hosting and related computer services and declaring an emergency as amended. Ordinance 2021-35, introduced by Mayor Kennedy. An ordinance to make and transfer appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures for the city of North Olmsted for the year ending December 31st, 2001, and declaring an emergency as amended.
Madam President,
Councilman Schuman.
I would ask that we suspend 2021-35, suspend the rule requiring 3 readings. This was discussed in committee and reported out this evening, and there are some time limitations with our July break coming up. Ask for a second.
Second.
Suspend the rule requiring 3 readings made by Councilman Schuman, seconded by Councilman Kelly. Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuman?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn?
Yes.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
That motion passes with a vote of 5-0. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to address council regarding ordinance 2021-35, please do so now.
With no response, I move for adoption. Ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt ordinance 2021-35 made by Councilman Schuman, seconded by Councilman Kelly. Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuman,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn,
Yes.
Mr. Limpert,
Yes.
Ms. Seaman.
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-35 is adopted with a vote of 5-0.
Ordinance 2021-36, introduced by Mayor Kennedy. An ordinance establishing a new local fiscal recovery fund as a special revenue fund to account for the receipt and expenditure of federal funds as appropriated by the federal government for disbursement to municipalities in Ohio and declaring an emergency.
Madam President,
Councilman Schuman.
I would move that we suspend the rule requiring 3 readings. This was discussed in committee, and it simply opens the fund. It's a pretty simple process. Ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rule requiring 3 readings made by Councilman Schuman, seconded by Councilman Kelly. Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuman,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Limpert,
Yes.
Ms. Seaman,
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn.
Yes.
That motion passes with a vote of 5-0. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to address council regarding ordinance 2021-36, please do so now.
Madam President,
Councilman Schuman.
with no response, I would move for adoption of 2021-36. Ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt ordinance 2021-36 made by Councilman Schuman, seconded by Councilman Kelly. Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuman,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Ms. Seaman,
Yes.
Mr. Limpert,
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn.
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-36 is adopted with a vote of 5-0.
Resolution 2021-38, introduced by Mayor Kennedy. A resolution authorizing the city engineer to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to provide construction services for the Elm Road Rehabilitation Project as detailed in specifications on file in the Division of Engineering, and authorizing the mayor, following approval by the Board of Control, to enter into a contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder. Legislation on first reading. Resolution 2021-40. A resolution adopting the alternative tax budget of the city of North Olmsted for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2022, and submitting the same to the Cuyahoga County Fiscal Officer and its Budget Commission and declaring an emergency.
Madam President,
Mayor.
I'd like to introduce, place on first reading.
Resolution 2021-41. A resolution authorizing the mayor to renew the contract between the city and Carrie Skull Tipton, North Olmsted Gymnastics, Inc., for the provision of professional gymnastics instruction services at the North Olmsted Recreation Center for one year.
Madam President,
Mayor.
I'd like to introduce, place on first reading.
Ordinance 2021-42. An ordinance dispensing with the requirements of North Olmsted Codified Ordinance Section 111.01, entitled City Contracts Involving the Receipt of Funds, and authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Cleveland Ice Storm Skating Club to provide concession services at the Recreation Center.
Madam President,
Mayor.
I'd like to introduce, place on first reading.
Resolution 2021-43. A resolution extending the policy for temporary signs in non-residential districts in the city of North Olmsted and declaring an emergency.
Madam President,
Mayor.
I'd like to introduce on behalf of myself, Council President Jones, and council members Brossard, Glassburn, Heeman, Limpert, and Williamson, place on first reading and request suspension of the rule requiring 3 readings and formal committee review.
Madam President,
Councilwoman Heeman.
I'd like to move for suspension of the rules requiring 3 readings. This was discussed in caucus this evening. It was unanimous that this is in the best interest of our business community and to keep their businesses moving forward. And I'd like to ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rule requiring 3 readings and formal committee review made by Councilwoman Heeman, seconded by Councilman Glassburn. Roll call, please.
Ms. Heeman,
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Limpert,
Yes.
Mr. Schuman.
Yes.
That motion passes with a vote of 5-0. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to address council regarding Resolution 2021-43, please do so now.
Madam President?
Director Garreau.
No, Madam President.
Yeah, just one moment. Thank you. Were you going to extend the date, or did you extend it by, you don't have to amend it, but is the new version have the new date in it? Is that what you decided to go with?
That is what council
Okay.
will use during caucus, and the Councilwoman Heeman was going to clarify that during her statement. Yes.
Okay, all right, just clarifying. Thank you.
Madam President, if I could clarify also, I think I might have forgot Mr. Kelly on that, on the legislation. So include him. Sorry about that.
The record will reflect. Thank you. Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to, seeing and hearing no objections to 2021-43, I would like to state that it will be extended through and including December 31st, and it was unanimously supported. And I'd like to make a motion to adopt 2021-43 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2021-43 made by Councilwoman Heeman, seconded by Councilman Glassburn. Roll call, please.
Ms. Heeman,
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn,
Yes.
Mr. Limpert,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Schuman.
Yes.
Resolution 2021-43 is adopted with a vote of 5-0.
Resolution 2021-44, a resolution authorizing the Chief of Police on behalf of the city to apply to the U.S. Department of Justice, DOJ, Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, COPS, for grant funding pursuant to its 2021 hiring program, further authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement to accept said grant funds and declaring an emergency.
Madam President?
Mayor.
I'd like to introduce, place on first reading, and request suspension of the rule requiring 3 readings and formal committee review.
Madam President,
Councilman Schuman.
I'd like to move to suspend the rule requiring 3 readings. And ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rule requiring 3 readings and formal committee review made by Councilman Schuman, seconded by Councilwoman Heeman. Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuman,
Yes.
Ms. Heeman,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Limpert,
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn.
Yes.
That motion passes with a vote of 5-0. If there is anyone in the audience who would like to address council regarding Resolution 2021-44, please do so now.
Madam President,
Councilman Schuman.
hearing, seeing none, I move for adoption of 2021-44. Ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2021-44 made by Councilman Schuman, seconded by Councilwoman Heeman. Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuman,
Yes.
Ms. Seaman,
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn,
Yes.
Mr. Limpert,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Resolution 2021-44 has been adopted with a vote of 5-0. And before we move into scheduling our committee meetings, I would like to make an announcement on behalf of City Council that barring any unexpected state announcements regarding gatherings, Council will return to chambers after its July recess, starting on August 3rd, 2021, for its regularly scheduled meetings. And Councilman Schuman, for scheduling committee meetings for Tuesday, June 15th.
So I will schedule a finance committee meeting at 7 o'clock on Tuesday, the 15th.
Thank you. Councilman Kelly.
Schedule the Recreation, Public Parks and Buildings Committee, 7:10 p.m. on June 15th for 2021 41 and 42 for 20 minutes.
Thank you. Councilman Limpert.
Yeah, I'd like to schedule, Madam President, a public safety meeting on June 15th, and we'll schedule it at 7:30, but pick up whenever Mr. Kelly's meeting's done to discuss liquor permits.
Thank you. Is there a motion on the floor to excuse the absence of Councilman Broussard from tonight's meeting?
So moved.
I will second it.
Motion to excuse Councilman Broussard from tonight's meeting made by Councilman Schuman, seconded by Councilman Glassburn. Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuman,
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn,
Yes.
Mr. Limpert,
Yes.
Ms. Seaman,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
That motion passes with a vote of 5-0. Is there a motion on the floor to excuse the absence of Councilwoman Williamson from tonight's meeting?
So moved.
So seconded.
Motion to excuse the absence of Councilwoman Williamson made by Councilwoman Heeman, seconded by Councilman Glassburn. Roll call, please.
Ms. Seaman,
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn,
Yes.
Mr. Limpert,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Schuman.
Yes.
That motion passes with a vote of 5-0. With the agenda being completed and there being business. Oh, I'm sorry, Director Garreau.
Sorry, I just wanted to point something out. Mr. Limpert, I had a question for you. My calendar says today's your birthday. Is today your birthday, Dwayne?
Yes. Lucky number 34.
I'm honored that you chose to spend it with all of us tonight. So, so happy birthday, Dwayne.
But we don't
Happy
have
birthday.
cake.
Well, I got a lot of birthday presents for Mr. Broussard and Miss Williamson. Both of them were very giving this evening.
There you go.
You were the star tonight. Congratulations, Councilman. With the agenda being completed and there being no further business to come before council, this meeting of June 1st, 2021 is adjourned at 8:51 p.m.